So tonight we're going to continue with the same theme of the voice in your head. And this Pink Floyd song just keeps coming up. Lunatic is in my head. It's called Brain Damage. So, without further ado, welcome and thank you for joining. Today we will start out on Chapter 3. Chapter 3 and 2 chapters we read. And Chapter 3 begins with, Who are you? Already sounds like we're about to go deep, doesn't it? Ramana Maharshi, from 1879 to 1950, a great teacher in the yogic tradition, used to say that to attain inner freedom, one must continuously and sincerely ask the question, Who am I? He taught that this was more important than reading books, learning mantras, or going to holy places. Just ask, Who am I? Who sees what I see when I see it? Who hears when I hear? Who knows that I am aware? Who am I? Let's explore this question by playing a game. Make believe that you and I are having a conversation. Typically, in Western cultures, when someone comes up to you asks, "Excuse me, who are you?" You don't admonish them for asking such a deep question. You tell them your name, for example, Sally Smith. But I'm going to challenge this response by taking out a piece of paper and writing the letters. SALLYSMIT. Is that who sees when you see? Obviously not. So you say, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I'm not Sally Smith. That's just a name people call me. It's a label. Really. I'm Frank Smith's wife. No way, that's not even politically correct nowadays. How could you be Frank Smith's wife? Are you saying you didn't exist before you met Frank? And you would cease to exist if he died or you got remarried? Frank Smith's wife can't be who you are. Again, that's just another label. The result of another situation or event you participated in. But then who are you? This time you respond, okay, now you have my attention. My label is Sally Smith. I was born in 1965 in New York. I lived in Queens with my parents, Harry and Mary Jones, until I was 5 years old. Then I got all A's in school, and in the 5th grade, I played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. I started dating in the 9th grade, and my first boyfriend was Joe. I went to Rutgers College where I met and married Frank Smith. That is who I am. Wait a minute, that's a fascinating story, but I didn't ask you what has happened to you since you were born. I asked you, who are you? You've just described all these experiences, but who had You've just described all these experiences, but who had these experiences? Wouldn't you still be in there aware of your existence, even if you had gone to a different college? So you contemplate this, and you realize that never in your life have you asked yourself that question and really meant it. Who am I? That is what Ramana Maharshi was asking. So you ponder this more seriously and you say, okay, I am the body that is occupying this space. I am 5'6" and I weigh 135 pounds, and here I am. When you were Dorothy in the 5th grade play, you weren't 5'6". You were 4'6". So which are you? Are you the 4'6" person, or are you the 5'6" person? Weren't you in there when you were Dorothy? You told me you were. Aren't you the one who had the experience of being Dorothy in the 5th grade play and is now having the experience of trying to answer my questions? Isn't this the same you? Perhaps we need to step back for a moment to ask some exploratory questions before returning to the core question. When you were 10 years old, didn't you look in the mirror and see a 10-year-old body? Wasn't that the same you that now sees an adult body? What you looked at has changed, but what about you, the one who is looking? Isn't there a continuity of being? Wasn't it the same being that looked in the mirror throughout the years? You have to contemplate this very carefully. Here's another question. When you go to sleep every night, do you dream? Who dreams? What does it mean to dream? You answer, well, it's like a motion picture plays in my mind and I watch it. Who watches it? I do. The same you who looks in the mirror. Does the same you who is reading these words also look in the mirror and watch the dreams? When you awake, you know you saw the dream. There is a continuity of conscious awareness of being. Ramana Maharshi was just asking some very simple questions. Who sees when you see? Who hears when you hear? Who watches the dreams? Who looks at the image in the mirror? Who is it that is having all these experiences? If you try to just give honest, intuitive answers, you are simply going to say, me, it's me. I'm in here experiencing all of these things. All of this. That's about the best answer you'll have. It's actually pretty easy to see that you're not the object you look at. It's a classic case of subject-object. It's you, the subject, that is looking at the objects. So we don't have to go through every object in the universe and say that object is not you. We can easily, very easily, generalize by saying that if you are the one who is looking at something, then that something is not you. So right away, in one fell swoop, you know what you're not. You're not the outside world. You're the one who is inside looking out at the world. That was easy. Now at least we've eliminated the countless things all outside of you. But who are you? And where are you if you're not outside with all the other things? You just have to pay attention and realize that you would still be in there experiencing feelings even if all the outside objects disappeared. Imagine how much fear you would feel. You might also feel frustration and even anger. But who would be feeling these things? Again, you say, me. And that's the right answer. The same me experiences both the outside world and the inside emotions. To take a clear look at this, imagine that you're watching a dog play outdoors. Suddenly you hear a noise right behind you, a hiss like a rattlesnake. Would you still be looking at the dog with the same intensity of focus? Of course not. You'd be feeling tremendous fear inside. Though the dog would still be in front of you, you'd be completely preoccupied with the experience of fear. All of your attention can very quickly become absorbed in your emotions. But who feels the fear? Isn't it the same you who's watching the dog? Who feels love when you feel love? Can't you feel so much love that it's hard to keep your eyes open? You can become so absorbed in beautiful inner feelings or frightening inner fears that it's hard to focus on outer objects. In essence, inside and outside objects compete for your attention. You are in there having both inner and outer experiences. But who are you? To explore this more deeply, answer another question. Don't you have times when you're not having emotional experiences and instead you just feel quiet inside? You're still in there, but you're just aware of peaceful quiet. Eventually you will begin to realize that the outside world and the flow of inner emotions come and go. But you, the one who is experiencing these things, remain consciously aware of whatever passes before you. But where are you? Maybe we can find you in your thoughts. René Descartes, a great philosopher, once said, "I think, therefore I am." But is that really what's going on? The dictionary defines the verb to think as to form thoughts, to use the mind, to consider ideas and make judgments. That's from the Microsoft Encarta 2007. The question is, who is using the mind to form thoughts and then manipulate them into ideas and judgments? Does its experiencer of thoughts exist even when thoughts are not present. Fortunately, you don't have to think about it. You are very aware of your presence of being, your sense of existence, without the help of thoughts. When you go into deep meditation, for example, the thoughts stop. You know that they've stopped. You don't even think it. You are simply aware of no thoughts. You come back and say, wow, I went really deep into this meditation, and for the first time, my thoughts completely stopped. I was in a place of complete peace, harmony, and quiet. If you are in there experiencing the peace that occurs when your thoughts stop, then obviously your existence is not dependent upon the act of thinking. Thoughts can stop, and they can also get extremely noisy. Sometimes you may have many more thoughts than other times. You may even tell someone, my mind is driving me crazy. Ever since he said those things to me, I can't even sleep. My mind won't shut up. Whose mind? Who is noticing these thoughts? Isn't it you? Don't you hear your thoughts inside? Aren't you aware of their existence? In fact, can't you get rid of them? If you start to have a thought you don't like, can't you make it go away? People struggle with thoughts all the time. Who is it that is aware of the thoughts, and who is it that struggles with them? Again, you have a subject-object relationship with your thoughts. You are the subjects, and thoughts are just another object you can be aware of. You are not your thoughts. You are simply aware of your thoughts. Finally, you say, fine, I'm not anything in the outside world, and I'm not the emotions. These outer and inner objects come and go, and I experience them. Plus, I'm not the thoughts. They can be quiet or noisy, happy or sad. Thoughts are just something else I'm aware of, but who am I? It starts to become a serious question. Who am I? Who is having all these physical, emotional, and mental experiences? So if you contemplate this question a little deeper, this is done by letting go of the experiences and in noticing who is left. You will begin to notice who is experiencing the experience. Eventually, you would get to a point within yourself and where you realize that you, the experiencer, have a certain quality. And that quality is awareness, consciousness, an intuitive sense of existence. You know that you're in there. You don't have to think about it, you just know. You can think about it if you want to, but you will know that you're thinking about it. You exist regardless, thoughts or no thoughts. To make this more experiential, let's try a conscious experiment. Notice that with a single glance at a room or out a window, you instantaneously see the full detail of everything that's in front of you. You are effortlessly aware of all the objects that are within the scope of your vision, both near and far away. Without moving your head or eyes, you perceive all the intricate details of what you immediately see. Look at all the colors, the variations of light, the grain of wood furniture, the architecture of buildings, and the variations of barks and leaves on trees. Notice that you take all this in at once without having to think about it. No thoughts are necessary. You just see it. Now, try to use thoughts to isolate, label, and describe all the intricate detail of what you see. How long would it take your mental voice to describe all that detail to you versus the instantaneous snapshot of consciousness just seeing? When you just look without creating thoughts, your consciousness is effortlessly aware of and fully comprehends all that it sees. Take that in for a moment. As I've shared in the past, the mind steals vital biological energy from the body. So when the mind goes into this crazy tailspin of, I need to label, explain, imagine how exhausting. That snapshot that consciousness is able to visualize, see, and experience outside. But yet the mind requires the need to explain it all, to put words to it. And many years ago when I did my first yoga teacher training, I was out in Nicaragua for the month of January. Absolutely beautiful. Here's the irony. It was posed to me, the moment you label something, you have essentially removed all its uniqueness, all of its significance, and you have reduced it to a label. So you see the sunset. Can you just experience it without saying it's beautiful, it's this, it's that, it's stunning, it's whatever? The moment the mind latches on and creates an explanation, it has reduced the experience because it feels the need to give it meaning when it already has its significance in the moment as an experience, the gift of the now. So anytime, again, there's always distractions, always going to be something to disturb your peace in the moment, to take you out of the moment. Whether it's in the past or in the future or whatever it is. That's the trick of life, is how easily we get hijacked. And it starts with our own mind because we allow external objects, situations, people, places, things. We allow that to take us out of the moment. So when we talk about choose your peace, choose your battles and all that, I personally I prefer to choose my peace. When we allow something to take us out of the moment, it's because we want to be distracted. But the question is, how conscious are you of your own mind taking you out of that moment? And it's usually because something bubbles up, right? And it's unconscious. Maybe you're conscious of it. Maybe you don't know what it is, but there's something that's stirring. Just like you could be perfectly fine doing something and all of a sudden, I feel hungry, but you're not really hungry. You go to reach for something, but you recognize this is a comfort food. Am I really hungry? What is this about? Am I looking to soothe something that's below the surface? Because that's usually when we reach for comfort foods. It's a soothing to an old trigger, wound, pain, something that's bubbling up. Can we catch it before it surfaces? Because when we are in a mood, conscious or unconscious, we reach for the food to soothe, and then that reinforces the mood. Because that is the cycle of energy that reinforces those old traumas. So your coping mechanism, survival skill, may be to reach for a certain food, or it could be a behavior or a pattern. This is the root of addiction, okay? Is when we seek to numb the pain, we also numb the joy, and then we become numb to the fact that we're even doing it. So when we recognize, oh my gosh, I am reaching for a familiar comfort food. Can I just be present with what is and not run from it and try to numb it out using food or whatever it is? Because essentially the energy, the vibration of that trigger is reaching for something equal, believe it or not, to either ride it out, to numb it out, suppress it, but then it still gets expressed. Consciousness and awareness in the moment is where we slow it down. This is why we meditate, so that we can become more mindful, and so that when these things arise, we see it kind of in a slow motion, because meditation is slowing down to be present in the moment, and we use the power of the breath to breathe into the moment, because that's what gives us awareness of our thoughts. And when we become aware of it, we can start to challenge what is arising. Otherwise, we're just doing things through habitual pattern and routine, because that's part of the program. Okay? So, labels limit. And when we try to just explain something, we really truly can't. Because something that's an experience, which is pretty much all of life, was meant to just have that moment, that time. It's fleeting. Consciousness is the highest word you will ever utter. There is nothing higher or deeper than consciousness. Consciousness is pure awareness. But what is awareness? Let's try another experiment. Let's say you are in a room looking at a group of people and a piano. Now make believe the piano ceases to exist in your world. Would you have a major problem with that? You say, no, I don't think so. I'm not attached to pianos. Okay then. Make believe the people in the room cease to exist. Are you still okay? Can you handle it? You say, sure, I like being alone. Now make believe your awareness doesn't exist. Just turn it off. How are you doing now? What would it be like if your awareness didn't exist? It's actually pretty simple. You wouldn't be there. There would be no sense of me. I'm going to answer that. That's a true story. Pamela just asked, can you still be aware, conscious, in the moment with comfort food? Of course you can. Your awareness is the key. You can also sit there, and I've done this myself because I believe in the power of our thoughts, right? Yeah, looking for that happy median. We all are. Can you sit down with that and be like, you know what? I'm recognizing in this moment that I am reaching for this food to soothe. And that I'm okay with what is arising. That I am not here to reinforce it. That I am going to love this moment. But the awareness of it is part of the key. And if you're willing to go a little bit further, okay, maybe you want to enjoy that food. Don't beat yourself up, because most people, what is the first thing they do? They self-sabotage with their thoughts. Like, oh, I know I shouldn't be eating this, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's like you're punishing yourself with your own authoritarian self. And it's so freaking crazy. It's like, just enjoy it. I always say, if you're going to cheat, enjoy what you eat. Bless the food, bless your thoughts. Be like, I am going to indulge and love every moment of this. But that awareness is the key, right? I love chocolate. Chocolate's my go-to. Chocolate's like my, hey, I got to have that like flavor. I'm not like going to eat a whole candy bar every day, but I like little pieces because I believe in satiating with just the flavor and not overindulging, what they call gluttony. You know, the 7 deadly sins. And chocolate is very good for you. It's high in magnesium. Do you know that that actually makes sense that people reach for chocolate and they think, oh, I shouldn't eat chocolate. And I'm like, who told this lie? It's not chocolate that's bad for you. Now, there are chocolates out there that are poorly made. They're not made the best. I'm going to go and I'm going to buy the best chocolate. If I'm going to eat chocolate, I don't have any chocolate with soy in it. I want the real stuff. I do dairy-free preferably. I go for the top quality. Why? Because I'm worth it and I like good stuff. I'm not going to skimp on my own health. That if I'm going to eat something, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to eat crap. Every once in a while, you know, maybe you might find some things are considered crap, but you know what? We're humans. I think we came here for certain experiences, and I think all this judgment around food, and I can tell you, I've been on the waves of all these different trends. And I don't want to judge someone based on what they choose to put in their body, because I don't feel that that helps uplift them. I don't feel that supports them. I see how people do enough self-flagellation and beating themselves up with what they eat that I don't need to be the second another voice of punishment. Because typically, we all know we are our own worst inner critic, right? We're already beating ourselves up with our own thoughts, and they're not even who we are. It's this mind that goes crazy. It's the lunatic in our head. But the reality is, to have another person come over, all that does is kick the ego into high gear. You're looking to start an argument when you start picking on people for what they eat. So the last thing I want to do is make someone feel, less than because I've judged them based on my personal preferences or projected my beliefs upon them. I mean, we have enough judgment going on in the world, especially since judgment comes from religion. Come on, people. I'm at this point where I'm like, throw the Bible out, throw the books out. They're all man written. Can we go back to the basics? Be a good human. Nobody wants to be judged by another human. In fact, isn't it so ironic? Judge lest thee be judged. You are not the judge and jury of everybody else. So when you start putting yourself in that role, you're taking on some really big shoes to fill. I wouldn't be putting myself there. I do it enough on myself. I don't want to do that to other people because that shows that I am not loving them as they are, that I'm putting conditions on what is lovable in that person, whether it's food, whether it's their lifestyle, whatever it is. Of course, what do? We tend to choose people that make us feel comfortable in our circles of friends and family. So be really mindful of that type of stuff in your life because we're not all perfect. And when we start going out judging everyone else, what that really is doing is telling all about ourselves. We're letting our shit show. And it is a shit show. People running around trying to tell everybody what they should do or how they should live. Those are miserable people because they're not happy with their own lives when they start dictating to others. Got those dicks dictating, flinging them around. All that is territorial. Marking your territory, thinking you know best for everyone else. We got to start with numero uno. If you can't work on you, don't you dare start trying to work on others. And the sad thing is the way that the world is being run over and ruled over is by the worst of them all. Total hypocrites. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Right. Love is allowing. The highest form of love is just allowing, because wouldn't you want that done to you? Do unto others you would want done unto you. The golden rule, very simple. I think that should be just the standard humane rule. I think we'd have a better planet, a better world to live in if people started to think, how would I feel if I treated this person the way I'm about to treat them? You know, get those split instant glimpses into what is about to unfold. Because that creates wars. And that goes back to our BS is what starts wars. People's triggers and their traumas, fighting over getting their needs met. I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. I'm going to make everybody suffer because I want what I want when I want it. And I want it now. Yeah. That's why we're in the state of the world that we are right now. And I had to experience the extremism of food and lifestyle and all this stuff in the wellness community. And over these past couple of years, I just was really woken up to the fact that there are a lot of people who aren't walking the talk, yet they're in the spaces and the environments, and it kind of hurt my heart. Because when I went into those spaces, I was genuinely seeking to heal myself and to do better. And I still am, because that's who I am. What I am is about doing better. Because when I knew better, I was like, I got to apply this. So I've been never called myself vegan. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. But I feel personally, if you really look at history, divide and conquer is all about creating groups so that you can get the people at the lower levels fighting amongst each other so that the people up above can go, hee. They're not paying attention to what we're doing. That's where the real issue is. When you see that you've been hijacked and you're fighting with your fellow neighbors, friends, and family, you should be looking behind the curtain and seeing what is all that going on back there, because 9 times out of 10, when you're fighting and bickering with somebody else, something else is going on. And I learned that lesson a long time ago, especially with my background. But essentially, I've done the whole food plant-based. I've gone down the path of healing chronic illness and pain and this and that. And I really do believe this is just another one of the divide and conquers. And it's not to say that there is one right or one wrong way. And I want you to just remember that what we're here to do is to find what resonates with us. Today it may be veganism, tomorrow it may be something else. And I had to go through the extremes of thinking I knew what was best for my dad. Dad, you really need to eat less meat, or you need to do this, you need to do that. And it didn't serve the relationship whatsoever. If anything, I created more divide. And then when I recognized it, I'm going to tell you, I went hands off, and the relationship got that much better. Because I realized my dad was already judgmental on himself, and as much as I love my dad, I wasn't loving him as he was. I was putting conditions out there that you're only lovable if you fulfill this list that I believe you should fill. And that is such a humbling come to Jesus moment, if that's what you want to come to. When you recognize you're talking about saying you're all inclusive, you're all about equality, you're all about this, you're all about that. Except the moment you recognize you've got a but, maybe, what if, you're not being unconditional. And a lot of times that's a very, very painful suffering that we infringe upon ourselves and our friends and family. It is fine if you want to change your trajectory and you want to just eliminate people out of your life. But ask yourself why. And is it because it's for your heart and your soul and the path you're meant to go on? I know from my personal experiences over this past year, changes in my own life have been to protect and to expand my heart, that I can still love people even if they treated me less than ideal or didn't appreciate me or reciprocate what I was giving. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, they just weren't going on the same journey and the same path with me, and that's okay. I'm not like trying to force anybody to go where I'm going. They're going to make it on their own. And not everybody's meant to go with you. But we always have to discern and unlearn the old programs. Be humble beings, not doings. So, continuing, because that was a whole off the subject, but it's on the subject anyway. What would it be like if your awareness didn't exist? It's actually pretty simple. You wouldn't be there. There would be no sense of me. There wouldn't be anyone in there to say, wow, I used to be in here, but now I'm not. There would be no longer an awareness of being. And without awareness of being, consciousness, there is nothing, no thing. Are there objects? Who knows? If no one is aware of the objects, their existence or non-existence becomes completely irrelevant. Like the tree falling in a forest. Does it make a sound? It doesn't matter how many things are in front of you. If you turn off the consciousness, there is nothing. If you're conscious, however, there can be nothing in front of you, but you are fully aware that there is nothing. It's really not that complicated, and it is enlightening. So now, if I ask you, who are you? You answer, I am the one who sees from back in here somewhere. I look out and I am aware of the events, thoughts, and emotions that pass before me. If you go very deep, that is where you live. You live in the seat of consciousness. A true spiritual being lives there without effort and without intent. Just as you effortlessly look inside and see all that you see, you will eventually sit far enough back inside to see all your thoughts and emotions, as well as outer form. All of these objects are in front of you. The thoughts are closer in, the emotions are a little further away, and form is way out there. Behind it all, there you are. You go so deep that you realize that's where you've always been. At each stage of your life, you have seen different thoughts, emotions, and objects pass before you. But you have always been the conscious receiver of all that was. Now you are in your center of consciousness. You are behind everything, just watching. That is your true home. Take everything else away and you're still there, aware that everything is gone. But take the center of awareness away and there is nothing. That center is the seat of self. From that seat, you are aware that there are thoughts, emotions, and a world coming in through your senses. But now you are aware that you are aware. That is the seat of the Buddhist self, as explicated by the Buddha in the Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra from Kosho Yamamoto's translation. Also from the Hindu Atman, which comes from the innermost essence of each individual in Hinduism, and the Judeo-Christian soul that most of us are familiar with. The great mystery begins once you take that seat deep within. So that's the chapter on who are you? And I need a sip to drink. You are just the witnesser, observer, experiencer of your experiences in this life as a human. Yet we make it so complicated, don't we? Oh yeah. All that BS, flinging our shit around like monkeys, trying to get our human needs met. And we think we're so clever. Actually, it's our mind that thinks we're clever. Because the seat of our soul, our seat of our consciousness, sees it all. And even calls it out in bullshit and transmits it and translates it through the body. Because it's the body that's always telling on that mind. When you wince in pain, you feel discomfort, you feel inflammation, anger, frustration, that's all being translated in the physical body in an attempt to get your attention to call out the mind and the BS. And that's been the way that I translate it with the way that I teach and my own personal experience through these years. Because my body has always been my greatest teacher. Physical pain, chronic pain, seeking to heal old traumas, old experiences, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual too. Yeah, I trust it. I trust my body. Long before anybody tells me to tries to tell me about my body, I'm usually the first one to say, this is where I feel it. And that's essentially what we all should be doing, because if you're outsourcing, giving your power over to an external authority, somebody who has certificates or, they have more, letters after their name, look in the mirror. You are the expert and the professional of your body, but the problem is most people are out of touch with it. You got to tap back into this wisdom. You have everything you need within you. You don't need to go outside. You don't need to have someone else tell you about it. It's one thing when you're open to receiving different healing modalities and all that, but do you really need it? I mean, if you really were to be honest with yourself, a lot of times we seek it out for another form of attention that wasn't met when we were younger. But I do also like massages, so I'm not going to deny that my body needs touch, because that is a human need. That's a basic human need in my book. Not everybody likes to be touched, but that's also something to sit with too. So when someone says they don't like to be touched, I'm like, wow, where does that originate? Where does that go back to? Because if you don't like to be touched, does that also mean you don't like to touch yourself? And that's a shame. That usually comes up. So, chapter 4, the lucid self. Because these were shorter chapters, I decided to put 2 together. So, the lucid self. There is a type of dream called a lucid dream in which you know that you're dreaming. If you fly in the dream, you know that you're flying. You think, hey, look, I'm dreaming that I'm flying. I'm going to fly over there. You are actually conscious enough to know that you are flying in the dream and that you are dreaming the dream. That's very different from regular dreams, in which you are fully immersed in the dream. This distinction is exactly the difference between being aware that you are aware in your daily life and not being aware that you are aware. When you are aware, when you are an aware being, you no longer become completely immersed in the events around you. Instead, you remain inwardly aware that you are the one who is experiencing both the events and the corresponding thoughts and emotions. When a thought is created in this state of awareness, instead of getting lost in it, you remain aware that you are the one who is thinking the thought. You are lucid. How many of you out there can relate to that? That the lucidity is the ability to sit back and observe the thoughts. And even sometimes you're also observing the observer, like when we go that much deeper. This raises some very interesting questions. If you are the indwelling being who is experiencing all this, then why do these different levels of perceptions exist? When you are seated in the awareness of self, you are lucid. Where are you when you are not seated deeply enough inside the self to be the conscious experiencer of all you are experiencing? Where did you go? To begin with, consciousness has the ability to do what is called focus. Yeah. Frente enorme. Yeah. It is part of the nature of consciousness. The essence of consciousness is awareness, and awareness has the ability to become more aware of one thing and less aware of something else. In other words, it has the ability to focus itself on certain objects. The teacher says, concentrate on what I'm saying. What does that mean? It means focus your conscious attention on one place. Teachers figure you already know how to do that. Who taught you how to do that? What class in high school taught you how to take your consciousness and move it somewhere in order to focus on something? Nobody taught you this. It was intuitive and natural. You've always known how to do it. So we do know that consciousness exists. We just don't normally talk about it. You probably went through grade school, high school, and college without anyone discussing the nature of consciousness. Fortunately, the nature of consciousness has been studied very closely in deep teachings such as yoga. In fact, the ancient teachings of yoga are all about consciousness. The best way to learn about consciousness is through your own direct experience. For example, you know very well that your consciousness can be aware of a wild field of objects, or it can be so focused on one object that you are unaware of anything else. This is what happens when you get lost in thought. It's mesmerizing, hypnotizing. It hijacks. You can be reading and then suddenly you're not reading anymore. It happens all the time. You just start thinking about something else. Outside objects or mental thoughts can catch your attention at any time, but it's still the same awareness, whether it's focused on the outside or on your thoughts. The key is that consciousness has the ability to concentrate on different things. The subject, consciousness has the ability to selectively focus awareness on specific objects. If you step back, you will clearly see that objects are constantly passing before you at all three levels: mental, emotional, and physical. When you're not centered, your consciousness invariably gets attracted toward one or more of those objects and focuses on them. If it concentrates enough, your sense of awareness loses itself in the object. It is no longer aware that it is aware of the objects. It just becomes object conscious. Have you ever noticed that when you're deeply absorbed in watching TV or a movie or a book, that you have no awareness of where you're sitting or what else is going on in the room? The TV analogy is perfect for examining how our center of consciousness shifts from awareness of self to being lost in the objects we're focused upon. The difference is that instead of sitting in your living room getting absorbed in the TV, you're sitting in the center of consciousness getting absorbed in the screens of the mind, emotions, and outside images. When you concentrate on the world of physical senses, it draws you in. Then your emotional and mental reactions draw you in further. At that point, you are no longer sitting in the centered self. You are absorbed in the inner show you're watching. 5 senses make you extrasensory. We are sensory beings. Never forget that. You're meant to be sensitive for a reason. Let's look at your inner show. You have an underlying pattern of thoughts that goes on around you all the time. This pattern of thoughts stays pretty much the same. You are as familiar and comfortable with your normal thought patterns as you are with the living space of your home. You also have emotions that are your norm, a certain amount of fear, a certain amount of love, and a certain amount of insecurity. You know that if certain things happen, one or more of these emotions will flare up and dominate your awareness. Then eventually they will settle back down to the norm. You know this so well that you are very busy inside making sure nothing happens to create these disturbances. In fact, you are so preoccupied with controlling your world of thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations that you don't even know you're in there. That is the normal state for most people. When you are in this lost state, you get so totally absorbed in the objects of thoughts, feelings, and the senses that you forget the subject. Right now, you are sitting inside the center of consciousness watching your personal TV show. But there are so many interesting objects distracting your consciousness that you can't help but get drawn into them. It's overwhelming. It's three-dimensional. It's all around you. All of your senses draw you in: sight, sound, taste, smell, and touch, as well as your feelings and your thoughts. But you are really sitting quietly inside, looking out at all these objects. Just as the sun does not leave its position in the sky to illuminate objects with its radiating light, so consciousness does not leave its center to project awareness onto the objects of form, thoughts, and emotions. If you ever want to recenter, just start saying hello inside. Hello, over and over. Then notice that you are aware of that thought. Don't think about being aware of it, that's just another thought. Simply relax and be aware that you can hear hello being echoed in your mind. That is your seat of centered consciousness. Now, let's move from the small screen to the big one. Let's study consciousness using the example of a movie. When you go to a movie, you let yourself get drawn in. It's part of the experience of watching the movie. With the movie, you use 2 senses, seeing and hearing. And it's very important that these senses synchronize. You wouldn't get as involved in the film if they didn't. Imagine if you were watching a James Bond movie and the soundtrack didn't synchronize with the scenes. Instead of getting drawn into the magical world of the movie, you would remain very aware that you were sitting in a theater, that something was wrong. But because soundtracks and scenes normally synchronize perfectly, movies capture your awareness, and you forget that you're sitting in the theater. You forget your personal thoughts and emotions, and your consciousness gets pulled into the film. It's actually quite phenomenal to contemplate the difference between the experience of sitting next to strangers in a cold, dark theater versus being so absorbed in the movie that you're totally unaware of your surroundings. In fact, with an engaging film, you may go for the full 2 hours without any awareness of yourself. So the synchronization of sight and sound is very important if your consciousness is to become absorbed in the movie. And that's just 2 of your senses. What will happen when your experience of a movie includes smell and taste? Imagine that you're experiencing a film in which someone is eating and you taste what they taste and smell what they smell. You would surely get caught in that one. The sensory input has doubled, and therefore the number of objects drawing you in, drawing on your consciousness, has also doubled. Sound, sight, taste, touch, smell. Oh, sight, sound, sight, taste, smell. And we haven't mentioned the big one yet. Would you even go to a theater that has touch? When they get all five senses working together, you don't stand a chance. If they all synchronize, you'll be completely absorbed into that experience. But then again, not necessarily. Exactly. Imagine you're sitting in the theater, and even with this overwhelming sensory experience, you still become bored with the movie. It just isn't capturing your attention, so your thoughts start to wander. You begin thinking about what you'll do when you get home. You start thinking about something that happened to you in your past. After a while, you're so lost in your thoughts that you're hardly aware that you're watching a movie. This occurs despite the fact that your five senses are still sending you all these movie messages. This can only happen because your thoughts can still occur independently of the movie. They provide an alternative place for the consciousness to focus. Now imagine that movies are made that not only engage the five senses, but also make your thoughts and emotions synchronize with what's happening on the screen. With this movie experience, you're hearing, seeing, tasting, and settling, you begin feeling the character's emotions and thinking the character's thoughts. The character says, "I'm nervous. Should I ask her to marry me?" And suddenly insecurity wells up inside of you. Now we have the full dimension of the experience, five physical senses plus thoughts and emotions. Imagine going to that movie and getting plugged in. Careful, that would be the end of you as you know yourself. There would be no object of consciousness that is not synchronized with the experience. Any place your awareness falls would be part of the movie. Once the movie gets control of the thoughts, it's over. There is no you in there saying, "I don't like this movie. I want to leave." That would take an independent thought, but your thoughts have been taken over by the movie. Now you are completely lost. How will you ever get out? As scary as it sounds, that is your predicament in life, because all of the objects you're aware of are synchronized. You get sucked in and are no longer aware of your separateness from the objects. The thoughts and the emotions have an accordance with the sights and the sounds. It all comes in, and your consciousness gets totally absorbed in it. Unless you're fully seated in witness consciousness, you're not back there being aware that you're the one watching all this. That is what it means to be lost. The lost soul is the consciousness that has dropped into the place where one human's thoughts, emotions, and sensory perceptions of sight, sound, taste, touch, and smell are all synchronized. All these messages come back to one spot. Then the consciousness, which is capable of being aware of anything, makes the mistake of focusing on that one spot too closely. When the consciousness gets sucked in, it no longer knows itself as itself. It knows itself as the objects it is experiencing. In other words, you perceive yourself as these objects. You think you are the sum of your learned experiences. That's what you would think when you go to one of these advanced movies. At such a movie, you would first get to select which character you want to be. Let's say you decide to be, I'll be James Bond, okay? But once you push the button, that's it. The button had better be on a timer. You, as you currently know yourself, are no longer there. Since all your thoughts are now James Bond's thoughts, your entire existing self-concept is gone. Remember, your self-concept is just a collection of thoughts about yourself. Likewise, your emotions are Bond's, and you are watching the movie through his visual and auditory perspective. The only aspect of your being that remains the same is the consciousness that is aware of these objects. It is the same center of awareness that was aware of your old set of thoughts, emotions, and sensory input. Now someone turns off the movie. Immediately Bond's thoughts and emotions are replaced with your old set of thoughts and emotions. You're back to thinking that you're a 40-year-old woman. All the thoughts match, all the emotions match, everything looks like, smells like, tastes like, and feels like it did before. But that doesn't change the fact that it is all just something consciousness is experiencing. It is all just objects of consciousness, and you are the consciousness. What differentiates a conscious-centered being from a person who is not so conscious is simply the focus of their awareness. It's not a difference in the consciousness itself. All consciousness is the same. Just as all light from the sun is the same, all awareness is the same. Consciousness is neither pure nor impure. It has no qualities. It's just there, aware that it's aware. The difference is that when your consciousness is not centered within, it becomes totally focused on the objects of consciousness. When you are centered being, however, your consciousness is always aware of being conscious. Your awareness of being independent of the inner and outer objects you happen to be aware of. If you really want to understand this difference, you must begin by realizing that consciousness can focus on anything. That being the case, what if consciousness were to focus on itself? When that happens, instead of being aware of your thoughts, you're aware that you're aware of your thoughts. You have turned the light of consciousness back onto itself. You're always contemplating something, but this time you're contemplating the source of consciousness. This is true meditation. True meditation is beyond the act of simple, one-pointed concentration. For the deepest meditation, you must not only have the ability to focus your consciousness completely on one object, you must also have the ability to make awareness itself be that object. In the highest state, the focus of consciousness is turned back to the self. When you contemplate the nature of self, you are meditating. For those who don't meditate or weren't aware of that, how does that sit? Let me know in the comments. Again, when you contemplate the nature of self, you are meditating. That is why meditation is the highest state. It is the return to the root of your being, the simple awareness of being aware. Once you become conscious of the consciousness itself, you attain a totally different state. You are now aware of who you are. You have become an awakened being. It's really just the most natural thing in the world. Here I am. Here I always was. It's like you have been on the couch watching TV, but you were so totally immersed in the show that you forgot where you were. Someone shook you, and now you're back to the awareness that you're sitting on the couch watching TV. Nothing else changed. You simply stop projecting your sense of self onto that particular object of consciousness. You woke up. That is spirituality. That is the nature of self. That is who you are. As you pull back into the consciousness, this world ceases to be a problem. It's just something you're watching. It keeps changing, but there is no sense of that being a problem. The more you are willing to just let the world be something you're aware of, the more it will let you be who you are, the awareness, the self, the Atman, the soul. And again, it's a waste of energy to send that focused attention, that frequency, to an object, imagined or real. It steals vital life force, biological energy from your being, your body, right? That's some wild stuff, people. Just be aware that you're aware. Just observe and be. Allow. You realize that you're not who you thought you were. You're not even a human being. You just happen to be watching one. You will begin to have deep experiences within your own center of consciousness. These will be deep, intuitive experiences of the true nature of self. You will find that you are tremendously expansive. When you start to explore consciousness instead of form, you realize that your consciousness only appears to be small and limited because you are focusing on small and limited objects. That's exactly what happens when you're focusing solely on the TV. There's nothing else in your world. If you pull back, however, you can see the whole room, including the TV. Likewise, instead of just focusing so intently on this one human being's thoughts, emotions, and sensory world, you can pull back and see everything. You can move from the finite to the infinite. Isn't that what they've been trying to tell us? Christ, Buddha, and the great saints and sages of all time and all religions. One of these great saints, Ramana Maharshi, used to ask, "Who am I?" We see now that this is a very deep question. Ask it ceaselessly, constantly. Ask it, and you will notice that you are the answer. There is no intellectual answer. You are the answer. Be the answer, and everything will change. Who am I? What a good place to stop. And that's really the truth. That when we come back to the present, the now, we breathe, we start to witness all the thoughts. Because as we breathe, thoughts present themselves, looking to hijack, keep the mind busy, because that's what the mind does. It wants to stay relevant. It wants to stay active. It's a runner. It thinks it needs to continue to think and create scenarios, stories, what have you, comparisons, judgments. Without the thoughts, who are you? The observer, the witnesser, the experiencer. It's pretty profound. And I know from looking back when I would sit, and even in my youth, for me, meditation was just going out in nature and just having that experience. And that meditation was just natural. You didn't sit like that, which is what a lot of people think you got to do. Like there's rules around meditation. Come on, people. Meditation is single-minded focus. It means wherever you put your attention, you could be doing dishes and meditating. You could be cleaning your house and meditating. And then you can use mantras to reinforce your mind and take the mind out of the thoughts. That's how you program and reprogram the mind, is you use mantras that have meaning and vibration and frequency to elevate you. So one of the things that I do when I clean my house, a lot of times I have mantra music playing almost 24/7 in my house to set the vibration and the tone and the frequency to maintain the energy in my home. And when I clean too, it's like I have special mantras that I just intuitively just start chanting. It's like, because they're clearing, they're cleansing. And everything needs to be cleared and cleansed once in a while, right? Hygiene, all that. Meditating while singing, all of that. There is no right or wrong answer to it. And in reality, it's what works for you. Whatever takes you to your present, to the gift of your now, the being in your own personal awareness, the gift of this now, you being the present, that's what works for you. Like, latch on to that. Do more of that. Nobody can tell you what's going to work for you. We're all like, this is a game of life where you get to try out a little bit of everything. And we are no thing, exactly. We are all and so much more. We're no thing, but we're everything. And that's another beauty, right? We are the expression of Godhead, the source. With the drops in the ocean, we are the ocean. And it's a gift to be in this human existence. It's just, we're making it so serious. Like, we got to do things a certain way. We have to have rules. We got to have blah, 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 blah. Oh, come on. Isn't that exhausting? When you're living in that need to defend your BS, your belief systems, I have to do this specific regimen. Like, if it doesn't come natural, why are you forcing it? Especially upon other people, because, misery loves company too. But it's the irony that we all have to face ourselves, because what it is we seek is ourself. It is that observer. And when we get to have that experience of the witnesser, the observer, it's like, wow, how cool is that? How clever that I can sit back and just observe. That's why I have these conversations with myself. And I tell you that I have a big mirror in my bathroom. So I have some of the most amazing breakthroughs from myself. My whole psychology goes down in my bathroom, literally clearing it out and like having conversations with myself. And I adore it, because I think first off, I think I'm funny, but not everybody thinks I'm funny. I don't really worry about what other people think, but I'll look in the mirror and I'm like, that's clever. And look at you go with your bad self. You're choosing to feel this, and oh, look at that thought. Where'd that come from? Like, the banter is necessary. The humility, right? It's fun. Make it fun. Make life fun again. And I was with my girlfriend last week, and I said, I know my purpose. My purpose is to remind people to have fun. And if you think about it, everybody is a grown-up child still trying to realize their dreams. The same dreams they had when they were a kid. Still trying to play, and they don't even realize that they're in their own way. That we're here to remind each other, even as adults, we still get to play. Not at the expense of others, but because that's what we are here for. As children know. Go hang out with children. They'll keep you youthful and young. They're innocent and they're amazing because they remember. Here we are trying to remember. I'm grateful because I still had that naivete. So, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in on this Soulful Sunday, whatever you want to call it. I'm enjoying the recapping of the Untethered Soul. Let me know in the comments what stands out for you during these readings. I appreciate your feedback. And be more mindful and sit behind, observe. Play with it, because it is meant to be a game. This is the game of life. We just forgot we were playing. I love you all so much. Smash the like button. Click the notification bell. Be so kind and subscribe. And from my heart to yours, we'll see you this week. And have an amazing evening. I love you.